everybody. This is Dean with the Two Party Podcast. I'm on here with Ashley Vickers. And do you want to go by Ashley Vickers or do you want to go by your Instagram? I should have asked, right?
Well, my middle name is Pearl, so my family calls me Ashley Pearl.
Okay, and that's how I know on Instagram. So again, I'm here with Ashley, and she's just got for those in the audience listening, I've been following her I knew her sister many years ago in Florida, and it's just I've been kind of following her. She posts a lot of just really positive and encouraging stuff, uplifting stuff that I talk about on the show quite often. And just ways to help lift up others. Sometimes just kind of getting yourself out into a good groove. And so, Amanda, I want to give you, or Ashley, I want to give you time to kind of give us a little feedback on your career, who you are, what you represent. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I work for a company called Self-Esteem Brands. My position is an international operations specialist. So I primarily work overseas, but our core mission as a brand is to improve the self-esteem of the world. And we always move towards that mission through 4 core values, which are people, purpose, profits, and play. And it sounds very, I think, corny or cliche, but it's something that a building of 400 plus employees takes extremely seriously, and we're all really passionate about it. So we really kind of embody that, hey, how can we make you better, whether it's physically, emotionally, mentally, anything of that nature. I'm also involved in an organization called the Guerilla Group. And our core mission is just to cultivate community and support for one another through hosting events like rock climbing, skating, surfing, things of that nature, just really bringing people together so that they don't feel alone, especially in times like 2020.
Yeah, 2020 has been kind of hectic, and I know there's a lot of people. Personally, like I said, we were speaking before we started recording, and I know personally 8 people this year that have overdosed, died, and committed suicide. And one specifically a couple months ago was my neighbor, literally across the street from us, an older gentleman, going through a divorce. Really good friend of mine. He was an older gentleman, but he was just a good buddy. I'd go sit with him. He'd drink his beers, and I'd just sit in his driveway. We'd just chat, And apparently, he just, between the divorce, the COVID, and obviously there was some mental problems. I talked to both his sons, and they're like, he's always had some severe depression and stuff, and. But he took his own life, and it's one of those, like, he called my wife like the week of and was like, I want to give you a bunch of stuff. And she called me at work, and I was like, red flags. Why is he giving stuff to us? So I told her, I said, no, tell him we don't want anything. I'll be home and I'll talk to him. And, we just don't ever know. I mean, you really don't know. I would have never expected a million years he would have done that. It was me, his son showed up there to check on him. They hadn't heard from him. Right. And it was myself that walked in to him. He shot himself. And it was, of course, it's a horrific scene. I've lived through a lot of really traumatic stuff. I've seen that stuff many a times. So I told him, I told his son, you don't need to see this. Let me go in and see what's going on. And kind of handled it, but there's people in such bad places in the world now, and not just the 2020, not just the COVID, not just being locked up, but mental health just doesn't really get checked out in our nation, or even in the world really as a whole.
Yeah, I think that one of probably the greatest blessings coming out of COVID will be the emphasis on mental health, right? Because we've seen suicide rates and just kind of disturbance and like unwellness internally rise substantially during lockdowns and closures globally, not just in the United States. I think there's been an extra focus put on, hey, what are you doing for self-care? Even if it's just a walk outside or whatever brings you peace, if it's reading a book or listening to a song, make sure that we're actively and consciously doing those things, so that we don't fall into that downward spiral, right? Because once you start going down that avenue, it's so easy to get lost, right?
Yeah. and I know for me, you know, my history, and I've spoke a lot on the show about it. I do a lot of lives, and I openly talk about myself. I'm one of these people, you know, it's very rare to find, I guess. My wife tells me I got a light switch with my emotions because I could literally just shut them off and I could turn them right back on. And it's just from the things I've experienced in my life. But, you know, I've been through addiction. You know, I know what it's like to be at your lowest of low and spending your last penny on something you're addicted to. I know what that is. I know when you're that depressed and you're that miserable in life and that alone, where it leads. And so I've been there. I've had that dark cloud, that dark shadow. There's been multiple times in my life I've thought about, you know, I might as well just end it, you know, and being real about it. You know, those were times that I was in a bad place. I was not taking care of myself, mentally, physically, spiritually. All of it was just a mess. And I agree with exactly what you said. I think COVID hopefully will bring out a lot more emphasis on mental health. I would hope what I see a little bit is that I would hope there'd be more connection. And I do see a little bit of that already. I already see, you know, there's a million podcasts and there's a million more podcasts. And what I see is there's a lot of cool ones coming up that I see with self-help. There's a lot of self-improvement ones. There's a lot of mental health ones that are coming up, but like it's almost doubled this year because everybody having to do the virtual thing. But I'm hoping that it helps with the connections. And that's what I've been encouraging the audience is like, be intentional, be grateful for what you have, but make sure to share it. There's no gift you can give someone that's worth it if they can't share it.
Yep. So I think it's, you know, it's a super interesting concept because in 2020, moving into 2021, we have more knowledge and resources at our fingertips than we ever have before.
Yep.
Right. But the thing is that no one can do it for you. So, you know, a million people could put out a podcast or a YouTube video or a motivational quote about, hey, like you can improve your mental health by doing these 3 easy steps. But unless you're internally ready to take that first step and hold yourself accountable, it's not going to matter, right? You can read all the self-help books in the world, but if you're not ready to make a change
and take action.
You have to take action. No one's coming to save you.
That was the most difficult thing for me, I think. And like I said, roughly about 6 years ago, I really started taking a look at myself and just being like, you know, this is crazy. You've lived through all the nonsense you've lived through and you're still making some poor choices. And at that time, I mean, I had full custody of my son. At that time, I was a single father. Met my wife when I moved here, and it was just one of those things. Like I was just a mess, and I always laugh at I tell my wife, like, man, how did you ever end up with me? Like what a mess I was when you met me. But about 6 years ago, I literally took a look in the mirror. I mean, when I met her, and she was, I guess she was just amazed at the fact that I was willing to look at my worst fear, which was me, and look in the mirror and say, dude, you are such a freaking mess. Like, what is wrong with you? And literally look at the things that I loved about myself, look at the things I hated about myself and why I hated those things and why I love these things. And is it worth hating these things, or is it something I need to embrace because it's who I am? And so it took me a while to really do some soul searching and figure out, like, are these really things that aren't good? Or are these things that I'm just not embracing the right way? I'm not loving myself the right way. And so it took me a long, 6 years now, and I still feel like every day I'm still working on just changing. But it was my thoughts. A lot of it was thoughts. It was literally some negative thinking that I just needed to get out of my head. That self-talk that you talk yourself into, and that tends to lead to that low self-esteem. And I had to get rid of all that.
Yeah. There's a movie, and it's a comedy, but for me, I watched it and I'm like, man, the moral of this story is so spot on. And the name of it was I Feel Pretty, and it was about a girl who society would deem as overweight, right? She goes to a soul cycle class. She falls off the bike, hits her head, and then, like, similar to a Shallow Hal style movie, she thinks she's a supermodel, right?
Yeah.
And her confidence went through the roof, but really it was her self-talk. And that, I think, just illuminated the world around her, and people were drawn to her. And I know that it's a fictitious script,
right?
But in reality,
it kind of applies.
all it takes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm a firm believer that if through believing in yourself and taking action and working hard, you can make anything happen,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's all about putting in the work, acknowledging your faults, and then working to fix them.
Yeah, and there's, I think I was watching an interview with you, and I don't know who it was. It was one you just did. Was it Chris? Was that his name?
Matt, the
Matt,
operational
Matt,
athlete. Yeah.
yes. I watched that the other day, and the way you coaching him, and just that whole discussion you guys had was just, I was absorbed in it. I was like, this is great. This is like perfect. This is kind of what I needed to hear that day. And that's kind of like, I could hear the encouragement from you, but I could see in the conversation, like you allowing him to speak what's on his mind, what he's feeling. And I thought that was just huge. I mean, because I think like you mentioned earlier, listening. I mean, it takes a lot. Some people can't listen. Some people want to, I'm a big talker. My wife laughs at me all the time. She's like, you're perfect for podcasts because you don't shut up, and I'm like, okay, that's cool. I guess that's like one of my gifts. And she's like, maybe not a gift, but that's just it's just who I am. And look, we'll be out in public. She gets so mad. We'll be in public and I walk up to anyone. I'm outgoing.
Yeah.
And I will literally go talk to anyone. It doesn't matter who it is. I'll walk right up to them and just have a conversation. And she's like, can you just leave? Maybe they're just need to leave them alone. And I'm like, well, maybe not. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't. But it was just encouraging when I watched that interview with you guys and saw that live. And I was just like, it's you got to listen sometimes. And sometimes that's all someone needs is just an ear.
Yep. I think more times than not, people feel unheard and misunderstood, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a combination of listening and asking the right questions, right? Especially if somebody's in a funk or having trouble getting themselves out of a hole type of situation.
Yep.
Asking them the right questions to perpetuate a different thought process than they're accustomed to is really key to make them realize, hey, I can move in another direction. The door's not closed. I have another option, right? And I think that society with the best of intentions try to be fixers, right? So you're going to tell me something's wrong. I'm going to give you all the solutions for it because I want to help you.
Yeah, all the advice that you think will work, right?
Exactly. But it's proven like that's not what's effective, right?
Yep. It's like that one friend. It's like that one friend you have, and you tell them the good advice you think you have, and then they don't do it, and you're kind of mad at them, like, why didn't they use my advice?
Yeah.
They didn't need it.
I think that we have, as a society, have to be more comfortable with not telling our side of the story and asking someone to elaborate further. Oh, I'm feeling sad. Well, tell me more about that. When do you feel sad? What's making you feel sad? What do you think about when you're sad? Right?
Yeah.
And most, a lot of people won't talk about it, but some people will. And Matt in particular is the hardest worker I know. Like, he's my favorite person to work with because he's so open. He's so vulnerable. I mean, obviously, he shares his story on Instagram and things of that nature. I thought
it was really cool. And he's like, I got to pull over. And he had to pull over. He's driving. Coach is calling, got to pull over. I thought that was pretty funny.
He was going to do it at the beach, but he had no service. So he had to go find
to drive back. Yeah, that was totally cool though. But again, that's life. I mean, that's real life and real engagement. And that's what I really loved about watching that.
Yeah, he's always a really good conversation.
And so you coach a lot of people.
Yeah, I do in both aspects of my life, in my career and with the not the Guerilla Group. I volunteer for another organization as a coach for veterans transitioning out of the military, but I kind of take my connections and my mission, my own personal mission still, and bring that to the Guerilla Group. So I think that's a value add that I have to our crew there, in addition to doing the marketing and stuff like that.
That's really huge. And I was looking, I mean, I have it pulled up right now, the Guerilla Group, and I'm looking at like, they have a lot of events they do. Tell us a little bit about like, not just the events they do, but I'm also reading like the manifesto, which kind of impresses me too. Very,
Yeah.
very simple seven statements that really are kind of cool. So tell us a little bit more
Yeah.
about Guerilla Group. I love the hoodie too.
Yeah, I'm representing.
Yep, for sure.
Always. So the Guerilla Group was founded by an active duty Green Beret named Ryan. He had just come back from a deployment and he lost a friend that he served with. And he had already been thinking about getting the Guerilla Group off the ground. But it was about that time where he's like, you know what, we really need to push this forward a little bit harder and kind of take it to the next step. So the concept is that we can help to facilitate events all over the country. So anybody can submit an event to our event coordinator, Courtney, and she'll kind of review it and she'll say, okay, like we'll post this, we'll market it or whatnot. But then we also do Guerilla Group sponsored events, right? So we just did one in Clearwater where we rented a house. We had a bunch of people came out. We did like indoor surfing, skateboarding. We went to a whole bunch of nice restaurants. We went dancing. Like it was awesome.
Cool.
And from the moment that I hosted that specific meeting, because it's in my hometown, and from the moment that I got there, I met two people who I had never met before. One of them I had communicated with a little bit on Instagram. The other one I had never talked to ever. And it was just that instant connection because it's like-minded people ready to get the heck outside of their comfort zone and try new things, you know? And so we brought together this group of people who met for the first time. We made some memories. And then a part of that group went up to Vegas and visited some of them over Thanksgiving. They had a Friendsgiving
That's
there.
cool. That's cool.
Yeah. And, you know, we've been trying to do some more virtual events and stuff too, like that. We hosted a virtual happy hour, which people loved because people connected from, I want to say like 10 or 12 different states all over the country.
Which is awesome. Yeah, that's huge.
Super awesome.
Yeah.
And then as of late, you know, we just kind of off a whim made this pledge for sobriety for the month of December.
I heard that in that interview with Matt. That was awesome.
And it's, gosh, the support and the momentum that we've gained from our community behind it has been so amazing. Like the amount of people who have said, I just needed this right now. I'm so stoked that you guys are doing this. I'm happy to be part of this community. I'm in. I mean, we've had hundreds of people commit to staying sober for the month of December. And, you know, not only for themselves, but they're challenging their friends to do it with them too. And so I'm, you know, it's day one today, December 1st. But I'm so excited to see how everybody supports one another and how we move into 2021 with a new sense of community that's not based around drinking and
social
partying
drinking and partying,
because we all do it, right?
Well, of course. I mean, and the camaraderie and the fellowship that creates for you guys with people and connecting with people around the United States, that's amazing. And then to everybody to be able to get on the same page. And then, I mean, how many of us, especially my age, I mean, you're obviously younger than me, but how many of our friends are really not going to be drinking into the new year? And how many New Years have they drank every New Year? And it's like, so that's a really huge thing to be like, let's go through December and just not drink.
Yeah. You know? And I mean, like immediately my friends are like, well, what about this Christmas party? And what about this Christmas party?
Yeah.
Like, I'll come sober. I'll drive you home. Like, I'm not worried about not going anywhere. Like, I'm very capable of having a good time and carrying on conversation without drinking.
Correct.
And for me, honoring the commitment that I made is more important than catching a buzz.
Yeah, right? Of course. Yeah. And I've still got tons of friends down Clearwater, Dunedin, and Tarp. And one of my really good friends is down there. He's a biker and drinks like a fish. And I'm always cracking his stones. I'm like, dude, you really got to put down the bottle. He'll call me at like midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, which is, 2 in the morning there. And he just woke up because he couldn't sleep and he's just drinking. And he'll call me, FaceTime me. And he's like, we're on video. And he's literally just chugging whiskey at 2 a.m. And I'm like, bro, at some point in your life, can you put the bottle down? And it's like, and I don't want to be, I obviously, my journey is my journey. I'm not trying to tell people they can't drink just because I don't in my normal life. When I go on vacation with my wife, she wants to go out. We go down to Florida usually twice a year. We didn't go this year, but usually about twice a year we'll go down. We'll go down to Indian Rocks Beach. We'll stay on the beach and we'll literally go get drinks. And she'll want a margarita or something and I'll have a few beers. But I just don't drink in my daily life. I don't drink every day. I don't have a 12 pack. I never have liquor just sitting around my house. And it's just one, I'm a business owner. I'm a general contractor. I own a business out here. I do the podcast. There's so many different things I have my hands in that I don't even have time. If I wanted to drink, I'd just be walking around drunk half the time in business meetings because I don't have time to really just come home in the evening to unwind, which used to be my excuse. But I think it's amazing for a bunch of people that don't even know each other to just make a commitment and say, hey, let's just not drink for 30 days.
Yeah.
Let's actually go into the holidays being who we are.
Yeah. And I think something else I'm super excited about is I was able to lean on some of my fellow coaches that I had graduated this particular class with, and ask them to volunteer with me to be a coach for anybody who needs additional support or like motivation or just needs to talk about their feelings and things like that. And we had a really good response from people saying, hey, I need help. And I think that's the first step and that's the hardest step.
Yeah.
And for us to be able to bring that to the community free of charge, I think is really special. And I'm really grateful to be able to offer that.
Yeah. And it really is a huge thing. I still call my friends down there and I encourage them all the time. Like, hey, what have you been drinking since we were like 16? Why don't you take a week off, or I'll be in town. Why don't we go meet up and have dinner? And they're like, oh, well, I'll be at one, so-and-so bar. And I'm like, but can we just go to dinner? Or do you have to come drink? And it's like, I always encourage them, even to take a break. Like prime example, my one buddy I was just talking about. I mean, I tell him all the time, dude, give your liver a break. You've been drinking day in, day out, 3 a.m. you wake up, you can't sleep, so you drink to drink yourself back to sleep. But then you're going to go get off work and go drink tomorrow morning during the day. So it's like, give your liver a break, And so I encourage, and part of it, I think, is just me being healthier now, eating better, me having a healthier lifestyle myself, trying to encourage others to do the same. But a lot of times, like we'll go down to Florida to visit, and me and my wife both are like, okay, everybody wants to meet up. We meet up, we're having a good time. And it's just like, then everybody's just sloshed. And we're like, okay, well, that was fun. And I just don't relate to that anymore, unfortunately. I mean, it's not desirable for me to go hang out with people that are just lit up.
Yeah. Yeah. I think everybody has probably their own journey, and Matt and I talked about it a little bit too. I don't know what will happen after this month of sobriety. I'm a big wine fan.
Yeah.
And, rarely do I ever get super drunk, but I do enjoy at least that one glass, that buzz. And from my own perspective, I don't feel like it affects my life negatively.
Right.
So I don't know if that's something I'll end up giving up long-term, or maybe it will be.
Right.
So we'll kind of see how I feel after not having it for 30 days.
Yeah. I mean, I honestly, I love a good beer. I love a good drink. Still to this day, I just don't, I've reached a point in my life where instead of that being my go-to when I get off work, which is how my life used to be, I'd be off work, bam, I start drinking. And it's like, I'm not that guy anymore. And I know that, and I know where it leads. It leads to just procrastination and laziness for me, and usually more problems after that. But, I love a good drink. And like you enjoy wine. My sister, she loves drinking wine. Usually almost anytime I go to see my sister, she had a glass of wine in her hand when I go visit her and stuff. And it's just, some people really enjoy it. It doesn't, the problem is when it obviously becomes a problem, when it becomes something that's negatively affecting your lifestyle. That's when it's a problem. Having a drink and having some wine is not a problem, for most people.
Yeah. I think I will say, for me personally, when I reflect on it, that feeling of being hungover, feeling sick is probably one of the worst feelings in the world for me. I hate it so much.
I don't miss that at all.
Like, I do not want to be feeling bad the next day in any facet. And so I think I gravitate more away from that. But I will succumb to peer pressure relatively easily because I
Right.
care about my friends,
Yeah.
right? So I usually
You want
spend
to
my
have
time
fun. You
with
want them
people
to
that
have
are
fun,
stuck.
and vice versa. Yeah.
Yeah, like, you know, even we have a big party the day before Thanksgiving at our farm in Georgia, and the cousins are like, "You gotta do a shot, you gotta do a shot," and it's like,
Okay.
"No, I can't." It's like, "But we're family." And I'm like, "Ah, okay,
Yep.
fine," you know.
Yep.
And I always regret it. I
Yeah.
always regret it, but at the same time, it's like I'm a people pleaser, so
Yeah.
you know, I'm excited to have the opposite of peer pressure, right? We have
Hmm.
this giant community of support that's like,
Yep.
no, don't do it, put it down, don't do
Yeah.
it, you
Have
know.
have the better
Just
peer. You know, if you're gonna have that peer
yeah,
pressure, let it be better, healthier peer pressure. Yeah.
yeah,
That's cool.
yeah. And I think you know, something else that's really cool is we offer alternatives, right? So I think there's a feeling or something that you get from drinking.
Hmm.
For me, and I think for a lot of the people that follow us, we all also enjoy that adrenaline, that chase
Yeah.
stoke,
Yeah.
that like, you know, that little bit of a thrill or a
Yeah,
lot of bit of
and
a
that
thrill.
was me growing up. That's why I always got in trouble, got in motorcycle accidents and ATV accidents. Got paralyzed from the waist down at one point, because I grew up an adrenaline junkie. If you told me it couldn't be done,
Yeah,
I'd say, let me show you how it's done. And then I
yeah,
end up breaking bones or crashing or something. So yeah, the
yeah,
adrenaline has been my drug for life. It really has been.
yeah. Very similar, very similar. And I think that we cultivate a community that chases that as well.
Hmm.
But you know, aside from the occasional accident, I think it's healthy.
It is. It
I think
is.
that's a much healthier way.
You can't see in here, but right outside the studio, right above the main door is my old skateboard. It's all tore up from doing half pipes and breaking my neck back in the day. And then my son, we just got him he's got a longboard, and we just got him another board, and me and him go out front and stuff. And I'm
I
still,
love
even
that.
at almost 45 years old, I still will hop on my skateboard and roll out over here with my son, and just hang out. My cousin decided to buy me, he surprised me out in Oregon. He shipped me a adult BMX bike because he thought
Oh,
us
nice.
adults need to have BMXs because now we're big kids. So he decided to send me one. Then he bought him one, and then he bought all his grandkids one. And I'm
I
like,
love it.
okay, cool. So now I've got this big adult BMX bike in the garage, and I'm like, okay, I got to start riding that now. Um,
Yep.
but yeah, I mean, I've done snowboarding. I mean, you name it, I've done it all. I used to love motocross. That was one of my big favorite things. But adrenaline's just a huge. I love it, and I love what you guys are doing on the Guerilla Group. I mean, some of these events I was looking at, some of the hiking, and I was looking at some of the pictures on here, and I mean, you guys are doing some really cool stuff. Um,
Yeah.
I was also reading when I was going through here, I was looking at the donations, which I thought was cool. You
Mhm.
guys accept donations for gear, which I think is really
Mhm.
cool. And I was going to mention that so that if the audience had gear, surfboards, skateboards, and rock climbing stuff here in Tulsa, there's a couple rock climbing like places you can go and do indoor
Mhm.
climbing. And so I know there's a lot of people that listen, that have a lot of climbing gear here. It's very
Yeah.
popular here. A lot of people here in Tulsa will head out to Colorado, and then they'll climb out there. So I know
Yep.
there's a lot of big climbers in our audience and stuff. But I thought that was pretty cool. You guys do the donation thing too.
Yeah. You know, I think a lot of people they just have like for me, you know, I have way too many skateboards. And so, like, some girls collect shoes, I collect skateboards.
Right.
And so, having a place just to say, hey, I can, you know, take this one,
Yeah.
is cool. And it helps people get involved in something that pushes them. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like on my lunch break today, from work, I went out and got a skate session in, and I just went up and down my street and
Yeah.
practicing my ollie, you know, because I'm not that great on a street deck, but I can crush a surf skate.
Yeah.
But you know, it also being able to get outside and do something. Gosh, I mean, the impact that it immediately has on my
Putting
own
these
well-being.
down, just putting these
Yeah,
down, it's one of
yeah,
those, like, we live in this society where everyone's like this, clutching this thing. And it's like, if you could just put that phone down for a minute and just go outside, get some vitamin D, and just enjoy life. Step
yeah,
back, I hate to say step back into the primitive life, but that's kind of what you have to do sometimes to re-engage, being the humans we are. I mean, it's just the
yeah,
electronics and the technology is great. It's amazing. However, you got to get out there and do things. And I love that you always encourage stepping out of your comfort zone, which is something I mention a lot. You have to try things in life. My wife is a very she is very stuck in what she likes. She's very stuck in the things she likes to do and does not like to do. And I cannot sway her no matter what. But I slowly have gotten her into, like, now she'll try seafood. I was like, last time we went down to Florida, I was like, we're going to go to Krabby's and we're just going to go get some seafood. And we got her to, and then we even got her to eat gator.
Place to have some.
Yeah, and we even got her to eat some gator tail. And she was like, okay, cool, my first time. We're like, that's a big step, man. That's a big step. And it's one of those, like, you have to step out of yourself sometimes. Life is so short. I remind people of this all the time. Life is so short to not try everything. And if you hate it, spit it out, throw it away, done deal, move on. But try different things. I always encourage everybody, try something. If you've never, somebody posted the other day on social media, a big bucket list of stuff, and it asking what you had done. And I went through there, and I think the only thing I hadn't had on the list that I haven't done is childbirth. And I'm like, well, that's obvious, but everything else on the list I had done. And they're all like, no, you haven't done everything. I'm like, everything, skydiving, you name it, I've done it. And I'm like, but there's a lot I haven't done. And so I'm always telling other people, like, why haven't you done these things? Like, we were talking on this post, and I'm like, why won't you guys try some of this stuff? Like, you can go spend your money doing something stupid around your house, or you can actually go spend the money on a skydive trip.
Yeah. I think fear can be, I mean, for things like skydiving, that's a little bit.
Well, yeah, that's a little bit up there. Yeah.
Yeah. But also the fear of looking stupid, which is totally in your own head.
Yeah.
But just people judging you. And that's something that's hard to let go of, and I still feel it for sure. I still feel it. But I made a decision a long time ago that I'll never let that be my deciding factor as if I do or if I don't do something, So I'm super committed to being scared and doing it anyway.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, one of our top performing videos on the Guerilla Group's Instagram was our indoor surf video that we posted recently. And it starts off like everyone's learning. We're all a little bit
now, was that in Clearwater?
It's in Clearwater.
That was okay.
Yeah. And then it's just everybody wiping out after wiping out after wiping out, and we had a pretty athletic crew there. Ryan's active duty special forces. I've been an athlete the majority of my life. Courtney was active duty Army. Who else? Chris is just an absolute fitness guru, and we're all just like eating it.
I've been to that specific store, and back growing up when Clearwater was something totally different. When we were growing up, there was still that big wave thing, and we used to go in there all the time. And I don't care. I surfed for a long time. I don't care who you are. That thing's hard. I go in there. I eat crap. For some reason, it's not like a regular wave. It pulls your feet like right out from under you, and you're done.
Yeah. And you're in a fishbowl, right? Yeah. Like you aren't in a bikini, but you could be in a bikini. Right.
That's on my bucket list. I haven't done that.
Yeah. Me and Courtney were in bikinis. Giant mistake the first time we did it because that water pressure is powerful.
Well, yeah, just pull.
But everyone's watching you, you know, and you're just falling after falling after falling. And it's one of those things where it's like, you're either going to be scared of what people think of you and laughing at you, or you're going to have a really good time. Yeah. And we had a specific time period blocked off, and we were having so much fun. We ended up booking the next half hour too.
Nice.
And it was like a highlight of the trip. It was just such a good time. And, people loved it. Like people loved watching us fall on our face, which was super fun. So, that's one of our main goals, is just being able to provide that avenue. Like we're all willing to get out here and look silly. We usually have people who are really good, who are willing to teach you and share what their skills are with people who are less skilled. Not too long ago, I went up to North Carolina, and I had connected with this guy on Instagram, Adam, who is an amazing skateboarder. He can do tricks on tricks on tricks, right?
I have been riding forever, and I am not a good skateboarder still. I can do half
Yeah.
pipes. I can kind of cruise and I can do some ollies, but I suck at, I honestly feel I suck at skateboarding for being 45 years old and growing up on a skateboard. I don't think I'm that great.
But at least you're doing
Yeah.
it, you know? And he connected with me. He's like, hey, let's teach you how to kickflip. I can't kickflip.
Yeah.
But he's like, let's teach you how to kickflip. And he met me at a skate park and he worked. So I've never met this guy. He worked with me. He taught me how to do some fun tricks. And I'm going back up, I think within the next week or two. And we're going to meet up again. And like, he's my homie now.
Right.
Like I went to his 40th birthday party. I'm friends with his
That's
wife.
cool.
Like we're in the same circle now. And it's such a kind of like a bittersweet, I think, benefit of social media, right? Is it can connect you to people across the world. Yep. And that's amazing. But it also perpetuates this constant state of comparison, right? Look, and it's a facade.
It is.
What
it's all visual, cosmetic.
Yeah.
It's very fake. You know, at the end of the day, you really have to be able to separate. You know, a lot of people are so absorbed on that social media that they can't separate like reality. Almost, it's almost like there's no reality separation sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, like I had a girlfriend, a really good girlfriend, and she lives overseas. And we met on Instagram. And because I travel so much overseas for work, she and I connect whenever I go. Yeah. And but you know, she sees me more on Instagram than anything else. Right. And I was over there and I was going through a breakup at the time. And I was just really sad. I was like, oh, like I'm feeling it, whatever. And I think I cried. And she's like, man, like, it's so crazy to see that like you're human. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Of course I'm human. Like whoever thinks I have my life together, no, I feel like such a hot mess more days than not, right?
Right.
But people will pick and choose what they determine is
they kind of label you a certain way, put you in a certain class.
Yeah. And I'm like, no, I'm a mess just like the rest of us. You know, I said it to one of my friends today. If anyone tells you they have it all figured out, they're lying.
They're lying.
To you.
Yeah, they're lying.
And
so bad.
I think an abnormally happy person. Like I have found my peace. I'm happy. I love my life. You know, I don't think that there's much I would change. Not that everything is perfect, but I'm content with what I have. And I still strive to always earn more. Yeah. But I'm so far from like ever just being like, oh, I'm good. Like, don't worry. Everything's perfect. You know, it's like this. Life is just a constant roller coaster. And I just happen to love roller coasters.
There you go. And you have to enjoy it. And I think honestly, back in the day, I mean, I was angry back in the day at some point. I remember going through a phase where I was just an angry person and I hated myself. I people didn't want to be around me. I didn't want to be around me and I couldn't get away from me. But it's one of those things like, you know, my wife's all the time. She's like, you're happy, you're outgoing, and she suffers with a lot of depression. So she's always like, you know, I'm not really in the mood. You know, she's like, I'm kind of in this mode where I'm at, and I don't want to. You know, your happy, bubbly self needs to go do something. You know, but I have reached a point where I realize like, I guess I'm just at a point in life. Maybe it's because I'm older, but I'm just like. Nothing is worth being upset over anymore. You know, it's like you said, there's no faking. I'm never going to reach a point where like everything's perfect. Of course. I get sad. I get depressed. I go through all kinds of crazy stuff still, but I finally have reached an age where I'm like, nothing is worth my aggravation or nothing's worth the emotional drain on me. It's just not worth it. You know, sometimes I'll just kind of be upset about something and talking out loud. And my wife's just like, you know, if you're going to be mad about that, go. And I'm like, no, I'm just talking it through in my head out loud. You know, I'm just kind of talking. And she's like, you know, and it's, I found myself now more than ever. I'm never unhappy. I really genuinely, I can say that I'm not unhappy anymore. I think I now take more time to reflect on the emotion. So instead of being unhappy, I tend to take the feeling I'm getting and kind of dissect it, if you will. And so I've just kind of reached a point where like, life's never I'm always going to be, like you said, you're always going to be doing something to change, or life will never be perfect. Like that's all I ever need. And if it is, I think it would be boring. I think if you reach the point where I have everything I need, everything I want is there, and I feel the way I feel, and I'm just there, I think it would be boring. I think life would just be like, then what? Then what am I living for if everything is just given to me and everything's perfect? Um,
Yeah.
to me, it's about the journey. It's about the learning. And now more than ever, it's about trying to give it to other people. You know, even if they don't want it, I
Mhm.
share. If you don't want to follow, that's great. We're good. But I try to just be upbeat, positive, share with other people my story. Hopefully, it helps them. And I always encourage and let everybody know if you need to reach me. I give my wife's like, you're crazy. I give my number, my emails. I have like 3 different emails people have. I hand them out cards for the construction business. I talk to clients doing job bids, and I'm like, hey, if you ever need to talk, here's my number. This is my personal cell. You know, and they're like, oh, we're just wanting a kitchen remodel, but sometimes people just, you know, and I actually have had clients call me and be like, look, you know, we were talking during that estimate, and you said I could call you to talk. And I've had clients call me and we just talk, and they're like, I'm going through some things with my wife and da 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 da. And I'm like, what can I do? What do you want to talk? How do you want to discuss it? You want to go meet up? Like, and
Yeah.
you just have to, you know, life's never going to hand you perfection. It's just not. You have to make the best of it. You really do in
Yeah.
everything. And I always remind people, life is so short. Why not make the best of it? Do I want to sit around angry, arguing with my spouse, or do I want to make her happy while I'm making my life good at the same time and have a good time?
Yep.
Because there's nothing in my mind, there's nothing worth in such a short life that we have. There is nothing worth sitting around being miserable with somebody in a relationship, whether it's a friend, a spouse. If you can't make somebody happy, or at least at the same time have a good memories made in those moments with those people, you got to kind of look at it and go, I need to change something. You know, this
Yep.
isn't the environment I want to be in anymore.
Tony Robbins said this,
Yeah,
and it
I've
for
listened to
me,
his stuff. He's got
he's a
some
G.
stuff is like that, and then some of his stuff is like over the top perfect. Like I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think he's a super solid guy. I
Mm-hmm.
enjoy listening
Yeah.
to what he has to say. And he said one time, in one of his presentations or workshops, he said, we all live the exact life that we want to lead, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's really confrontational to say to some people who aren't in a good place, or they're not
Right.
feeling a certain type of way, or in their imagination they want to feel another way, right? But if you kind of sit back and really reflect on that, it's true. Like,
Mm-hmm.
if you don't like something, are you doing everything in your power to change it? If you want to get somewhere, are you doing everything in your power to get there? And most people really aren't. They feel, I
Mm-hmm.
think, entitled, or they allow themselves an out, right?
Yep.
So they say, well, I tried that and it didn't work. So they stopped trying, right?
Right.
And
They
they
give up.
neglect to take that ownership.
Mm-hmm.
But it was something, I think, when I heard it, I probably wasn't as whole as I am now. I wasn't
Mm-hmm.
as fulfilled. I definitely didn't have my peace. And for me, I remember immediately feeling defensive. I was like, that's not true. That's so
Right.
wrong.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't want this.
Trying to
And
poke holes
granted,
in it. Yeah. Trying to poke holes in
yeah.
it.
And
Yeah.
so I think people immediately say, well, especially if you've lost someone, right? Well, I didn't ask to lose so and so, or if
Mm-hmm.
you've had a trauma, I didn't ask for this and this trauma. But that's not what it means. It means that, hey, you were handed something and it sucked,
Mm-hmm.
but it's still your choice to get through it and over it in a healthy way. And you can do that.
Yep.
And for some people who are stuck in being the victim loop, or that trauma or that loss has become a piece of their identity, I think the thought of moving past it becomes crippling, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
in their imagination, they're losing a sense of themselves.
Right.
Um, but to kind of look back and think about everything that I've accomplished, and to be where I am in my career and in the volunteer work that I do, I don't think that there's anybody on this earth who could talk me out of like hard work and dedication and like really just manifestation
Mm-hmm.
can't get you somewhere, you know? because really once I started taking ownership, it's a game changer. It's a game changer. And, you know, again, like, not to say that we as people, like, we never falter, we never make mistakes, or we never, you know, go down the wrong path, but there's always, 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 no matter how far you've gone, the opportunity to turn around.
Every
right?
day. Yep.
Every day. And it's a journey. It might be slow. It might take a long time. It might be painful. But if you try to improve by 1% every day, think of the difference that you could make a year from now, right? Yeah. You'll be 365% better, which is a completely different life.
Yeah,
you know?
Which is, and you know, you hear it a lot too, is the people that are like, you know, whatever you're worrying about right now, next year you won't even be thinking about it. And it's so true. Every day is a chance to change. Every day is a chance to make yourself better. And every day is a chance to take some perspective into the things going on in your environment and your world, and even in your thinking, and just changing it, you know, whether it's one thing, just one simple habit, even, you know, for me, that's what it started out with my journey. Was it started with habits. You know, first, I didn't want to get off work and just grab a 12 pack at the store and come home. I got rid of that the beer and the drinking went out the window. Then it was cigarettes. I was like, man, I got to quit smoking. This is horrible. I wasn't even a big smoker. It just became a habit of lighting one up and having it in my hand sometimes. And I was like, I don't want to smoke. This is gross. I hate smelling like an ashtray. Got rid of the cigarettes. And then, you know, it slowly, then I started turning it away from like that stuff into like, well, what about the habits I just do as a human? Like, what are the things I do that mostly annoy my wife? And how can I like kind of remove some of those bad habits she finds bad and still like not get a divorce, you know? Like, how can I stay in this marriage and not have her murder me? And so then I started kind of looking at the, like, not just so much the what things bothered me, but then how my life affects the person around me, especially the most immediate, my son, her. And that's where my journey kind of took me. And it was, again, every day I took time to, like, one habit, just one thing. And it was never like that day that habit went away, but it was that day I recognized that this is something I could change that would benefit me. And then I would work on it. And it would maybe take a week, maybe take a month, but I'd reflect on it. I caught myself early on with the thinking. I started actually removing, like, and it was so hard for me because I cussed like a sailor, but I started slowly removing, like, instead of replacing the, cussing when I hit my hand on the job and yelling out the F word or shit, you know, it was, I started replacing it with other things. And then I'd be on a job and I'd hit my hand and say something really stupid, and people were really like, what the heck's this guy talking about? And I would just replace words, and people were like, what the heck did he just yell, and why? Because normally you should yell shit when you hit your hand. And I'm like, Benjamin, or I just throw some weird term out there, and people, you all right? Yeah, I just hit my hand, you know? So I started actually doing that. And it was funny when I first started doing it, because I was like, I may look like a weirdo, but is this really going to be a process that's going to help me, like, change my thoughts and some of the things I think? And it did. And then I started noticing, like, instead of cussing, I was saying stupid stuff. And then I was like, now I got to stop doing stupid stuff. I kind of probably freaking people out, you know? But it was just that little bit. Every day you can make some change in some way. As we start wrapping up here, I want to ask you two questions that I think are kind of important for the audience, but I think maybe a lot of guests, when I ask them, it's important for them to kind of reflect on. And one is, what is one of the hardest things you've overcome? And the second one is, what do you think is your biggest achievement thus far in life? Those are hard. I know they're difficult.
Yeah. So, you know, I think throughout my own personal journey, and kind of working on some of the certifications and stuff that I have, we do a lot of introspective work. To answer your first question, one of the hardest things that I have overcome, I don't share as many of my hardships, not because I'm embarrassed or I'm ashamed or anything like that, but because I want my story to be personal and stay
those
personal.
Are yours.
Yeah. And when I do share it with someone, I want it to be meaningful.
Right. That makes total sense. Because the things that make you who you are, that you've overcome, are things you want to you want to know. They're personal and intimate to you. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that I've made the mistake in the past of getting stuck there. Right.
Right.
So, to kind of, I think, summarize it at a high level is I did fall into the victim loop. I did take that on as my identity and use it as a crutch. And I used it as a crutch to be miserable and drink and not generally nice to the people that actually cared about me. I was selfish and, pulling myself out of that pit. And I think becoming the person that I am today is probably one of the hardest things that I've ever done, but also one of the things that I'm most proud of because I live a life with intent and it's full of purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope that if something were to ever happen to me, that there would be a lot of people who would say, Ash impacted me in some way, whether it was with kindness or generosity or something of that nature. I think that I've made someone's day better on multiple occasions, and that's something that I'm proud of. And being a part of the Guerilla Group and having a platform to scale that and talk to more people and just really continue to spread love and kindness on a greater scale now. I mean, I don't think I could ask for anything more than that. You know
That's
what I mean?
huge. Yeah. And that's huge. And I was just going to say, like, literally right here, I'll raise my hand. You, like I said, just since I've been following you, I'm influenced, and I'm in Tulsa, Oklahoma. We haven't ever spoke really. And here I'm in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I get inspired. My wife laughs. She's always like, I'll be on my phone and I'll kind of be scrolling and she'll be like, who are you watching? And it's usually like some of the posts you do. And I'm just like, oh, it's Ashley, she's on here. And then she's like, well, what does it say? And I'll share it with her. And but it is, I mean, you're affecting one person right here in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I see a post, I see a positive, upbeat message when you post them, and I'm like, wow, that's cool. I'll reflect on that. And I'll usually my schedule's real weird. I'll get up, I work out for about 2 hours before I start my day, and then I start my day. And so that's usually the time when I'll wake up and I'll see something maybe from the night before or something you shared, and I'm like, oh, cool. And so while I'm working out, I'm reflecting on like how that process or how that saying or that slogan may affect me or how I can apply it. And so it does. I mean, you have affected one person for sure,
I'm so happy
and that's
to
all it
have
takes.
that effect on you. Thank
Well,
you.
yeah. And it only takes, one, and that's something else in my notes here, which I really haven't been following very good. That's one of the things that I talk about a lot on the show is that starting small. So me making changes in my life affects who? It affects my wife. It affects my son. Then when we step outside of our house, my son does jujitsu. He competes in jujitsu. So when we go there, we get to set an example with other families while he's learning jujitsu and he's competing in different AGF things. And my wife, with her family and the friends that we hang out with her. So the circle of me making improvements of my life better gets to go to the next people over. Then I get involved a lot with, which I probably shouldn't, but I do get involved with a lot of the political stuff in our community in Tulsa. Yeah. And so on that, partially because I do press work and partially because of the show. But then sometimes I want my community better. And so I'm kind of an activist that way. And so I always talk about how when we're working on ourselves, we're also able to impact our community. And again, you're impacting someone in Tulsa miles and miles away, where you're also impacting people directly in the community in Clearwater, Pinellas County area, as well as, like I was watching with your family over Thanksgiving. I mean, some of the stuff you posted there, you're affecting your immediate family. People don't realize how big the ripple effect is when you're positive, you're kind, or even you try to. Some people they can't muster it up. They're going through some kind of funk going on, but it's the ripple effect. It starts with dropping the stone in the water and then helping it reaches everybody you can.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's all we can all hope for. Right.
Yep.
And, I think that you really hit the nail on the head when you said, start with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you can't pour from an empty cup. And I think that that's what's most important for people to remember. And, for me, I'm 35 years old, and I'm lucky enough to be a part of a company. I've been with my company for 10 years now, and they're so forward thinking in regards to employee well-being and things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
So I had great leaders, I had great coaches, and people who taught me self-care. This is
Yeah.
how you do it, right? And so I've been on my journey for a long time, which is kind of
Mm-hmm.
crazy. But I think that people get excited to help, right? But when you also have to have really strong boundaries, like you have
Mm-hmm.
to be comfortable
You
saying
have to learn to draw
no.
lines in the sand,
Yeah.
and sometimes it's
Yeah.
difficult. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm so happy that you shared that with me. Thank you. It
Yeah.
means the world to me. And that's what fills my cup, right?
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
energy that makes me feel like rejuvenated and excited. And I'm like, oh, I have so many quotes that I want to share
Right,
tomorrow.
right. That tomorrow morning I'll be trying to work out and going, wait a minute, I gotta go look at this one. I gotta look at this one. But it is encouraging, and I think a lot of the journey that's got me where I am is part of that. It's part of me actually looking forward to somebody else's change, like me being able to watch your development and changes just via social media is encouraging enough for me to continue my journey, because I'm like, look, she's doing it, she's still doing it. And then I can see other people that I followed. I'm like, look at the positive message they're spreading. That's encouraging. I can keep going. Even on days when it's hard, I can say I can keep going because she's fighting her battle and doing it, and he's fighting his battle and doing it. And those are the things that really continue to help me. And again, I post on my Facebook, and if you look, you'll see. I mean, most of I don't post anything political or anything nonsense on my personal page. I have groups if I want to go yell about something stupid, I can in a group, but I don't put anything. If you look at my Facebook page, everybody's like, dude, what is going on there? It's all music. And most of it's like all 80s music. And people are like, why are you posting Madonna? Like, I like good old 80s music and all kinds of music, but the other stuff I post is either workout stuff, or it's encouraging, or it's me. I try to do at least every other day while I'm working out. I try to send one positive message, and so I'll do like today is late start tries and buys, and then I'll put something under that about hardship or struggle, and then I'll just tell everybody have a blessed day, help other people, and I try to do that as kind of a reminder for other people that I'm here for you, but also a reminder to myself, because if I look back on my social media, that's what I want to see. I don't want to see who cares what's going on politically, because that's not paying my bills, and it's not making me better. And I just don't want to see negative stuff. I've removed so many negative people from my life not because I don't care about them, not because I don't love them, but because they chose not to cope with their mess better on their own. When it starts to influence me, I have to step away from it. Like we just said, you got to have a healthy boundary. And I don't want to welcome, I don't want to welcome garbage back into my life that I've removed. So to speak. But it's been really encouraging talking to you. Tell me something we can do, Two Party Podcast, what we can do to help. Obviously I'll post this, we'll be promoting this, but is there something we can do to help spread the word for you guys? Is there something, any kind of self-promotion you need to do? Like tell the audience, like anything you want to fill us in on that might be pertinent.
So I guess a couple of things. We have our sober challenge for the month of December. So you can click through to our Instagram page, and we have a post. Share the post to your story if you want to participate. Mostly it's a commitment to yourself, but we offer the sense of community to help to get you through it. We're going to be talking about what we're experiencing as we go through it. We have a camping meetup in North Carolina coming up this month, I think on the 11th, 12th, and 13th. So if anybody's in the North Carolina area, absolutely come on out. But we're also looking for more leaders within the community. So we get a lot of DMs about, hey, can you host an event here? Can you host an event here?
Mm-hmm.
We have 4 members of the group, and it's impossible
for us to have contacts in those areas, right?
Yeah. And so, anybody who's interested in hosting an event, whether it's like a picnic or a skate session or indoor surfing, rock climbing is super popular. Do it, get with us, reach out. We make sure that every single message is answered, and you know, just try to be the change. And it sounds like super cliche, but hey
it's
man, if you
important.
don't see someone doing it, take
Yeah.
the lead.
Yeah. And I think that's the most important thing. I'm gonna continue to share this stuff on social media as well. I hope you have a great evening. I'll have you on again if there's ever anything that you from either company, from Guerilla Group or from your full-time work, like if there's anything you want to get on, share, and promote, you're more than welcome to reach out, and we'll be more than happy to put it on an episode.
Oh,
All
yeah,
right.
awesome. I love that. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yep. Well, thank you for being on.